I was going to say to Ms. Crowder, you could just face it down.
Well, Secretary Gutierrez, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
You know, obviously you've been in this fight on immigration for a great number of years. Going back to your service in the Bush administration and even before, why is this so important to our country's future for us to get immigration reform done now?
Well, first of all, this is really good economic policy. We can't grow as a country without immigration. In fact, our birth rate, what demographers call the fertility replacement rate, is about 2.1 babies per woman on the average. That's what we need to be achieving. But we're actually achieving 1.9. So without immigration, our population will decline. A declining population means a declining economy. So we need immigration to grow, and there are certain jobs in the country where we don't have the people to fill them. So we have to understand that this is an economic imperative. There are countries like Canada, Australia who have realized it, and frankly, they're doing a lot better than we are. Our laws are outdated, and they don't allow for a 21st century system where we're competing for talent. So this is good economic policy first and foremost.
You, as Secretary of Commerce, spent a number of years traveling the world, understanding markets, understanding what's happening in the 21st century economy. Talk to us about why immigration reform is important from a competitive perspective.
Yeah, you know, everybody's competing for talent. The world is extremely competitive. Everybody's trying to get the best engineers, the best PhDs, the best mathematicians. So this truly is a global competition for talent, and we're not even competing. You know, we have a cap for our high-skilled workers on H-1B at 65,000. The new regulation would take it to 110,000. But at 65,000, that number is taken up in the first 3 or 4 days. So even 110,000 won't be enough. We just have to face reality and realize that we need higher caps. And that will enable us to bring in the people we need. We have to remember that 40% of the Silicon Valley companies were created by people who weren't born here. 50% of all new jobs are created by new businesses that have been around for less than 5 years. Immigrants create new businesses at a faster rate than the average. And for every new job that an immigrant takes, there are more than 2 American jobs created. So this is, we have got to realize that this is a competitive necessity. And if we continue to fall behind, we're going to fall behind economically and competitively. And again, countries like Australia, like Canada, are doing it so much better than we are. They have updated their laws. We haven't touched our laws in decades, which is shame on us because we're falling behind.
You, of course, are one of those many great examples of immigrant successes in this country, and the entrepreneurial spirit, the work ethic that immigrants bring to this nation. Tell for those folks that are not familiar with your story. I mean, you went from an immigrant to CEO of Kellogg, to Commerce Secretary, to a senior post at Citigroup. Tell folks a little about your story.
Well, I was born in Cuba, so I came to the U.S. as a refugee. We became citizens. Then we moved to Mexico because that's where my father got a job. So I started my career in Mexico, which made me an immigrant in Mexico, ironically. So I've wrestled with being an immigrant just about all my life because I've lived in different countries, and it's you're constantly carrying that weight around with you. The important thing that we have to realize as a nation is that the single biggest thing we can do for our country is to welcome immigrants, to make them feel like they're welcome, to make them feel like we need them, to make them feel like we want them to succeed. When I came to this country, that's the way people made me feel. And it generates a tremendous amount of loyalty to the country, to the society.
You are aware that there's still some conservatives that are that are criticizing the bill and the efforts by Rubio and others to put this legislation before a vote in the Senate and to get this passed. As a conservative, I believe this, largely this is in line with conservative principles. Conservatives respect hard work, respect the entrepreneurial spirit, and want to see the immigration system fixed. But tell us your.
Well, I think it's I think the conservatives who are not supporting this, frankly, I think they're wrong. I think that there's a confusion here as to what the conservative movement is all about. We are about economic growth. We're about entrepreneurialism. We're about low taxes, smaller government, more individual opportunity. We can't be the party of prosperity and growth unless we're the party of immigration. There is a strategic inconsistency. We are not the party of xenophobia. We are not the party of protectionism. We are not the party of slow growth and stagnation. So we have to be the party of immigration reform and immigration. And I would just make a plea to my fellow conservatives to realize that this isn't good policy, and to be very honest, this isn't good politics.
What are some of the lessons that you learned? You were one of the leading figures in trying to get this reform enacted in '06. What are some of the lessons that you learned that we can apply here?
Well, the lesson, you just asked me a question about conservatives. The lessons I learned is that there are conservatives who didn't like the bill, and there were liberals who didn't like the bill. Many on the left tried to kill the bill through poison pill amendments, and that's because, you know, certain factions of the Democrat Party don't want immigration either. You know, we talk about border security. The Democrats talk about taking American jobs, which is absolutely wrong. But that's the important thing, is both sides have been the problem. And unfortunately, they've just criticized one side, but there has not been bipartisan agreements here. And that's what we need, because this is hurting our economy. This is probably the cheapest single stimulus plan we can do. And both parties need to understand that this is bigger than their own local politics. This is good for the country.
You started a group that's growing by the day called Republicans for Immigration Reform. Talk to us a little about the genesis of the group and your efforts and what you're seeing as you stump for reform.
Well, what we're doing is raising money to be able to support candidates who support immigration reform. So we can't coordinate with the candidates, but we believe that many members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, want to vote for immigration reform. They get it, they understand it, but they're worried about a primary challenger from their right. We would go in and support these members of Congress, and that's what we're raising money for. We can't coordinate with them. This is an independent expenditure. It's just simply an exercise of our freedom of speech. But that's what we want to do, is give Republicans cover, and make Republicans understand that this is good for the country and good for the party.
Secretary, one of the most talked about aspects of the reform bill is the question of what to do with the 11 million or so undocumented, and whether we should have a path towards legalization or a path towards citizenship. Talk a little about your views on that.
Well, first of all, we've said we're not going to give everybody a passport, and we're not going to deport 11 million people. The reason that we have this illegal immigration problem is because Congress has done nothing about fixing the immigration system. In 1964, we got rid of which was not ideal, and it wasn't, the human conditions under which people were put were not favorable, but it was canceled. And after that, it wasn't substituted for a legal system. So the only way that farms and other businesses couldn't survive would be to just hire whoever was available. So I would say that the 11 million undocumented is Congress's fault. Now, citizenship is something that will take 13, 15 years. And that's very much a Washington inside baseball, the whole subject of citizenship. I think it would be a terrible shame that just because someone says citizenship is a line in the sand, that we deny 11 million people at least some form of legalization. They deserve to leave their house in the morning and know that they're coming home at night to see their kids and that they're not going to get deported. The citizenship thing will maybe 13, 15 years from now. I think it's important. I personally support it. What I don't support is that the bill falls because of that issue. Because I think the big thing here is if you ask those undocumented immigrants what they want is a legal status. It's interesting that in 1986, during President Reagan's reform, when it was a lot easier to get citizenship, only 41% chose citizenship. So we're making a big deal out of something that may not be that important to people, that may be 15 years down the road. The president has said that he will kill this bill. He will not sign it if it doesn't have a path to citizenship. I think that would be a terrible shame to deny the 11 million undocumented workers legal status, and we can sort out the citizenship debate later. I support it. I wish it were in the bill, but I would not kill the bill if it weren't there.
One of the great aspects of this bill is the fact that it also addresses the national security aspects of immigration reform, which are very, very important. And it does a great deal to secure our borders. Speak about what you like in that.
That's very important, and this is a very strong bill on border enforcement and national security. It is the southern border, and there's a lot of technology being brought to bear at the southern border, but there's also a monitoring system, a visa monitoring system that we need, because 40% of the undocumented come in through airports and simply overstay their visas. So we need a system to monitor who's in the country and who isn't. And then we need to give the technology, and I say give, we need to make it mandatory that the private sector use a technology that allows them to verify that the documents they're getting from potential workers are legal. Those three things will make us safer as a country. Today we talk about 11 million undocumented. We think it's 11 million. It could be 13, it could be 10, it could be 15. We don't know who those people are. I would say that the great bulk of them are here to work and to achieve the American dream and to contribute, but we don't know who else is here. And that is part of our broken immigration system. So passing immigration reform is good for national security, and that's just one more reason to do it.
You make an excellent point. Right now, and Senator Rubio has called this de facto amnesty. Right now you have a system where there's 11 million people living in the shadows. I believe that for national security purposes, knowing where they work, knowing where they live, registering them so that they're paying taxes, and identifying all these people is very important.
And that's the thing about, you're saying conservatives are concerned. Well, conservatives are also big national security. This is good for national security. How can we feel good about a system that where we have 11 million people in the country and we don't know who they are? This reform package will enable us to know who they are, and the people who don't come forward to request their legalization, those are the ones we have to worry about. Not the people who are working in gardens or working in agriculture or making our beds in hotels or taking care of our elderly in nursing homes. We've got to worry about the people who are here who don't come forward to register. But I agree with Senator Rubio. Ignoring the problem is just another way of giving amnesty. And even more important, ignoring the problem will not make it go away. Every year it gets more complicated. I think it's irresponsible to not address it.
You've always been a thoughtful leader in the business sector and in the public sector, of course. Talk to us a little bit about what supporting immigration reform or not supporting immigration reform also says about us as a nation. I mean, we're a nation that was founded by immigrants and for immigrants.
We're a nation of immigrants. We've always been a nation of immigrants. And we've always had, at a given point in time, we have had our people who were against Irish immigration, German immigration, Italian immigration, European, Greek immigration. But that what history shows is that those people get swept away by history. Those voices just disappear in the overall sweep of history. And the same thing will happen this time around when we do pass reform. But this is what we do the best. If we get this right, we'll have an advantage for the 21st century. And if we get it wrong, shame on us, because we are the land of immigrants, and we're behaving as if though we're afraid of immigrants. And you know, that's xenophobia is fear, and we should be confident of our society, confident of the U.S., confident that when people come here, they sign up to be Americans. They sign up for the American way. So we shouldn't lose confidence in our system, especially now when the world is so much more competitive.
Two final questions. One, it's funny because in recent days, as the bill passed out of the Judiciary Committee, is now heading to the Senate floor for consideration, you hear conservatives sometimes using arguments that are traditionally liberal. You know, these people are going to take away American jobs. Would you address that aspect?
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting here, the politics of immigration. There are three groups that are anti-immigration, that they would like to see immigration stopped. Legal immigration, illegal immigration, they just don't like immigration. It's FAIR, Numbers USA, Center for Immigration Studies. These are extreme population control groups that in some cases have endorsed the China one-child policy and just very extreme ideas. And they are feeding information to conservatives. That's the biggest irony I can ever imagine. And unfortunately, conservatives are falling for it. And I just think we need to understand who we are, what we stand for, and be true to our principles. And again, we cannot be the party of growth and prosperity if we are not the party of immigrants.
Any final thoughts for the folks?
Well, look, we have an opportunity to do something that's great for our nation, that's great for our economy. We have the opportunity to give this economy a jolt that will happen by streamlining and legalizing our future immigration system, by bringing people out of the shadows, and again, strengthening our national security through all of the security enforcement mechanisms that are in the law. This is good policy. It's good politics. I would just hate to see this thing not succeed, and then we have to wait another 5 years. In 5 years, things will be so much more complicated. It'll be so much more dysfunctional. We owe it to our economy, to our citizens, to have a better system. This is not about hurting U.S. citizens. It's about helping U.S. citizens. I was talking to, just to close, a little anecdote. I was talking to a restaurant owner the other day. So he owns 3 restaurants. If he had more workers, he could have 8 restaurants. And by opening up those 8 restaurants, he would employ more U.S. citizens. That is happening hundreds of thousands of times throughout our economy. And that's why we need to do this quickly. And I'm surprised that this isn't more of a bipartisan majority vote, and that we just don't get on with this thing.
Secretary Carlos Gutierrez, Chairman of the Republicans for Immigration Reform, thank you for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it.